Dr. Monteiro, he expressed that the struggle is not over until we're all free, right? And in our hearts, I know that that's extremely important. And I have always felt that way, but coming out of long terms of confinement, we believe that in our hearts, and I know it's extremely important. But to hold on to it is kind of our huge responsibility. And with Rebound, we gotta live it. We gotta walk it and become it. But also on this side of the wall, dealing with life on life terms, sometimes it pulls us away from some of that stuff that's in our hearts. So a little story though, I have to realize how deeply entrenched that piece is. I can remember back maybe 4 years ago, a colleague of mine, we were called to do some outreach in Tracy Prison. But if you know about correctional institutions, there's ways and guidelines to get admittance to these places. One of them happened to be, we had to be there at the gate at 7 in the morning. Tracy is out there in the country now. So we had to realize that we're coming from two different areas in the Bay Area. He's coming all the way from Vallejo, and we got to figure out how we're going to get at this gate at 7 to get into this prison. Now, mind you, we're rushing. It's early in the morning. We're in the car, and we realize we're speeding down the highway. If there's any law enforcement folks in the room, we're not going that fast. We're just going as fast as we can. But we're hustling. We're hustling to get to this gate, right? And we're looking over at each other. Both of us, you know, I had a 17-year term for California prison system. He had about an 18-year term for California prison system. And we realized the irony in what's happening here. We're rushing down the freeway to get back into prison. We had to take a look at that, right? And we're going to talk to this group of lifers. And the theme of the day is agape. We didn't rehearse. We don't do all that. We don't do a lot of rehearsal. But as we talk to each other, we're kind of figuring it out. And then when we got in the room, everything came together. Now my colleague, he was huge he got his master's degree from here in philosophy. And at that moment, all of the pieces kind of came together. He's hugely big on this allegory of the cave concept. And for most folks in the room, you kind of understand that the breakdown of the allegory of the cave and being able to be free, but come back and share with the people. So in that moment, that concept of agape came together. That's our responsibility. Regardless of how dealing with life on life terms and how complicated that can be for everyone in this room that knows a little bit about that, we still have this civic responsibility to do our part. How are we going to express to this group of lifers that might not be feeling like hearing anything that day, that we care and have this concern for them? Share a little bit of something with them that they might be able to take with them and give them a little tinge at a light at the end of the tunnel. But that is exactly what the whole day was about. That was the concept of agape. Although we didn't rehearse it came together in our actions. Regardless of how long we have been out of prison, our job and responsibility is to continuously go back in there and share that access to possibilities outside of prison. So that's what it was. And directly in line with what you were speaking on, Dr. Monteiro, is the work is not over until all of us are free. There's some folks, those who want it, we have to make sure that it exists. And we're constantly fighting against these concepts of people understanding what this whole reentry is about. We rely on prisons to solve a lot of our issues in California. And without the community speaking up against some of the things, it would continuously go in that way. So we have an obligation to speak up and say some of that is not right. We don't have to rely on those resources to solve all of our problems. I was tired as a young man in my 20s, serving time on one side of California and being moved all the way up to the other side. Every prison that I served time in, seeing oceans of black and brown faces everywhere. I just didn't believe that we are that much more criminal than everybody else. I couldn't believe that. So I have a responsibility. Everybody that in the network I know has a responsibility, and we couldn't do it without the acceptance of San Francisco State and now a few more campuses in the state of California to do that work. Aside from being living examples of successful reintegration ourselves, we have a responsibility to share that recipe with others. So as far as the community piece goes, we do that. And now with the education to support us, we're actually fighting for advocacy to change a whole bunch of the stuff that forced a lot of us, or easily allowed a lot of us to go into prisons. But I don't know if that's my 10 minutes, but that is was extremely important for me to share with you about this community connection, because SF State has produced, in the 52 years that we've been here, we produced folks that have graduated from here and gone on to fight policy, not just go into corporations or do all that stuff. They're working for all of us, and there were some All of Us or None members here, but not just All of Us or None. The ARC, the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, cut 50 with Van Jones. What's another one? The Felton Institute, the Burns Institute. So SF State is doing their job. We're doing it, and we're doing it through Rebound. We're doing it together. So as far as community goes, I hope we're living up to what we portray. Thank you.